Madam Chair, the closing opposition needs to realize this debate does not exist on should we be giving birth naturally or artificially. This debate exists when people choose to give birth in this particular spectrum, and should they be funded or not. We do not hear a particular engagement or a particular case in respect to that particular aspect of this debate, which we think is very, very valuable for side opposition to win this debate. Now moving on to what our side had on this particular idea. When Saurabh gave his speech, he was particularly clear about how women who cannot give birth and how women who can give birth due to various reasons such as disabilities or things as such, or even due to complexities. He told us that these people will be able to give birth. That is, these people will be able to enjoy their right to give birth. Versus in their side, these women who are in very, very poor condition are not being able to give birth. Rather, they are being condemned in their society, in their particular case. And we say that is problematic. Now, on regards to questions of how will government fund this particular issue, we say money would not be much of a problem at the first place. Secondarily, we say not everybody will come in, because some people will realize there will be complexities with it, and not every people will be coming out to give birth in a very artificial respect. And we say that is completely fine for people to come on and choose to give birth in that particular aspect. We do not see any problem. And secondarily, about the idea of how this creates dependency. We're not talking about we give birth in complete this sort of ectogenesis thing, but we are concerned about if this should be funded or not. Now, I say this will not create dependency because there still exists a choice of giving birth naturally. This is the kind of aspect that the opposition need to admit in this particular debate. Now moving on to another point about how women are strong because they give birth and things like that. We say women will be stronger in our case because these women will have all the process to give birth at the first place, then maybe develop embryo in ectogenesis, and they will use this particular period of time to be more productive. This particular time to enjoy the common lifestyle they would be living, and this makes the women more strong and more productive because they will be contributing something in this particular aspect, and we say that contribution will make women stronger, not all the kind of harms and all the kind of defects that these people should be going through in cases of pregnancies and things like that. So we say this will we say women will be stronger in our side, and we say the whole idea about women not being stronger do not stand on their particular case. Now let's analyze the major problems that the side opposition had in this particular debate. From the side opening opposition, the only idea we hear about is why exploitation, what sort of exploitation can happen when these things are free. Saurabh already told you how this sort of exploitation would not happen because these children will ultimately be their responsibility, and this thing won't exist at all. So that pretty much deals it. Now, even if they are willing to give birth irrespective of it, we don't see how that is problem because government would not be responsible of that children of their growing up and things as such. So the entire case of side opening opposition fails on that regard. However, what the side closing opposition was talking exclusively about in this particular debate was the idea about how women are who they are because they give birth. We say that exists in our side too. We say that choice is existing in our choice. We're just concerned about funding that some people might require for purpose such as funding that these people who choose to give birth in that ways require, and we are very, very happy to give those sort of funding. Now let's move on to major questions in this particular debate. Three major questions. One, should government be responsible? Two, is it justified for government to give this sort of fund? Three, what gives better outcome? On the first regard, should government be responsible? We say government is responsible for these particular things because if these things exist, the very, very obvious outcome would be the people who can afford these sort of technologies are likely to use these sort of technologies. What does this ultimately create in our society? We say this creates an unjust between people who can afford and between people who cannot afford. This sort of economic division already exists in our society, and if this sort sort of technology exists and we do not fund for all people, this sort of unjust will rise to an extent where it will be very hard for us to pretty much move on from. And that is the primary, that is the very obvious outcome to outcome that can be problematic in future in sustaining countries later on. So we believe that should be government's responsibility. Furthermore, what we want to emphasize on is social contract theory. How the birth of baby do not happen from consent, and it should be government's responsibility to make sure that these children come unharmed, or these children can come and contribute in a way they should be contributing. So we say government should be responsible. What kind of response we hear from them? We pretty much hear the things such as this can be exploited, which has been pretty much dealt throughout our case, and things as such. That is the only kind of response that we see from the side opposition. Other major factors that are left unresponded in this particular debate from the side opposition, which we believe are very important in this debate, are the ideas such as birth being fundamental right and how government should be facilitating it. We hear no response from side opposition. Another unresponsive thing the opposition did in this debate was about exclusive benefits for disabled, poor, unhealthy lifestyles people and things as such. No response on that regard too. Now, why is it justified for government to fund these kind of people? Because these people are primarily government's responsibility. People should be facilitating birth, and when this sort of inequality and discrimination might exist, it should be primarily government's responsibility, and hence government is justified to fund these people. And we hear pretty much no engagement on that regard from both the side in opposition, because they do not tell us to why government should not be paying to these things. That was the kind of burden they had, and they did not fulfill it. Moving on to third class, that is what gives better outcome. We say in our society we do not see people divided in terms of economy. In regard of this technology, that is, every people, regardless of their social status or their financial status, can afford this system, and we say this is better in our side. Their best case is neutralization of this sort of technology, and neutralization of this sort of technology. We do not see how that happens. Their case supports that idea. Their likely case is people who can afford will pay, people who cannot afford won't pay. That is, poor people will still be discriminated. So we say that their best, even our worst of cases are better than their best case.